Hello, and welcome to part 2 of getting to know your TI84 calculator and a few shortcuts to help you out on SAT and ACT. I encourage you to print out the worksheet that came along with this so that you have something to take notes on, so you don't have to rewatch this awkward video when you want to review the shortcuts. You can just look at your notes. And I also encourage you to hit pause often so that you can try to find the buttons on your own or redo what we just did on your own to make sure you know how to find things. So thing number one, if you did some calculations and you got a decimal as your answer, but you looked at the answer choices and they were fractions, your calculator will convert that to a fraction for you. If you push math, first thing on that list is convert it to a fraction. Side note, second thing on that list is convert it from a fraction to a decimal. So since we want to make it a fraction, we're going to pick that first thing. And then if I just hit enter again, it'll turn it into a fraction for me. If I want to enter in a fraction, a shortcut for that is pushing my green button, so my alpha button, and then y equals. I don't have to hold it down. And I get a bunch of fraction shortcuts. So the first one is just a simple fraction, numerator over denominator. The second one is if I have a mixed one. So we got 2/3. And then I can add that to, same thing, maybe hit pause, see if you can find that button. So alpha, y equals, we're picking the second thing so that it's mixed. So 5 and 1, 7. Calculator will do everything for you. You don't have to find a common denominator or turn it into an improper fraction. They often on SAT, ACT, they have these complicated like fractions within fractions. You can do that on your calculator as well. So same button, alpha, y equals. I'm just going to pick the first one. So since we're doing a fraction within a fraction, same thing, just alpha y equals, since we have a fraction on top. So 2/5. Go to the bottom, we got a fraction on top of a fraction, so another fraction. And 1/8. Add that to, same thing, alpha y equals, to make another fraction. Pick the first thing, 2/7. Calculator will do everything for you. I don't have to find common denominators. If I was testing out answer choices, or if and answer choice B was just slightly different than answer choice A, or if I realized I typoed and that 8 was supposed to be a 5, I can edit it by essentially copy pasting it. So I just push up until whatever I want is highlighted. I can't edit it there. I have to copy paste it first. So once it's highlighted, I just hit enter. It'll fill that in for me, and then it'll let me edit. So I can just go back until the 8 is highlighted and just change it to a 5. And again, it'll just do everything for me. These buttons also work with graphing. So if I want to go switch to a graph, I would go to my y equals button. And then maybe I'll even just clear that out. So then I could, if I'm entering in a rational function, so same thing, alpha y equals, pick the first thing for numerator, denominator, and I can just enter in my x minus 1 over x plus 2. And then if I hit graph, it'll show me what that graph looks like. So I don't have to like calculate the asymptotes or remember what those things mean exactly. Getting back into calculating. So if I want to quit out of this, I do second and mode. Since quit is in little tiny blue letters, it means push my blue button first. If I'm doing logs, if I just use my log button, that's going to be base 10. So if I need a base of something other than 10, one shortcut is alpha and then window. Thing number 5 is log base other than 10. So if I pick that, it will let me fill in log base 4, log base anything. I also have a solver button if I just need to do one answer. So it can give you 2, but just for simplicity, if you only need one answer. How I get to the solver button is I go to math, and then I scroll down until I see solver, and then side note, here's another log base in case you forget the first one. So if I pick solver, you can see like the last equation in there, like x squared minus 4, like x could have been plus or minus 2, but this is only going to solve it for one of those answers. So it only tells me 2, even though x could also be -2. So just be aware it's only going to give you 1 unless you play around with the bound thing. So if I wanted to enter in my own, I would clear out of whatever happened to be there before. So I'm just going to hit clear. It is, for this model, it is sort of stuck on 0 equals. So I do need to get the equation equal to 0. So just subtract things off one side. But if I was going to enter in that equation, so 7 parentheses x plus 4 plus 14, and then I subtracted that 18x to the other side, so now it's over here, minus 18x. And then I just move to the next screen. It is going to give me the answer of whatever it was last time until I tell it to solve. Solve is in green above my enter, so I have to hit my alpha green button and then enter in order for it to give me my new answer. I like to do that twice just to make sure that it's not accidentally giving me the old answer, but then that'll solve everything for you. Might save you some time or at least some mental energy. I'm going to get back to my calculate screen. I'm going to quit out of this. Quits in blue, so second mode, quits out of that. I also have shortcuts for, the calculator has shortcuts for permutations and combinations. So for example, if we've got 10 horses in a race and I want to know how many different ways I can place a bet first through third, I do need to know that that's a permutation because order matters instead of a combination. But instead of memorizing all the formulas, I can go to my math button. And then this perb is for probability. So it's the same unit as permutations, combinations in most schools. If I push to the right, it'll get me to my probability menu. And thing number 2 is for permutations. Thing number 3 is for combinations. So if I pick that one, I do need it to have the total out in front. So this is filling in the answer from last time, which would have been 3. I don't want that. I want it to be a 10 instead. So I'll just insert 0 there. And then on the back side of it, so it needs to be the total that I'm picking from, probably permutation button, and then the number that I'm picking, and it will solve it all for me. Same thing, if it was a combination, I would just use the NCR instead button. If I'm solving matrices, even if I haven't learned what that even means yet, I do recognize I have a little blue matrix thing. So if I'm trying to solve a matrix, I do 7, and then I'm going to need to insert a matrix there. So I do second matrix. I have to essentially create a matrix, so I'm just going to call the first one A. So I need to go over and edit. So I'm just pushing to the right button, edit, and I'm going to edit thing A. It has 2 rows and 2 columns, so I'm just going to make it a 2 by 2 instead. If it doesn't look like what you want, just change the numbers. And then in order to enter it in, I know the first one's 3, and then the second one's 8, and then the next one is 5, and the next one's 7. And then that will just be there until the end of time. So you can quit out of it and it will have saved it. So I'm gonna quit out of this and enter that matrix in here. So I'm gonna do, it's gonna be times that matrix. So to enter that matrix in, I just do my second to get to matrix. And if I just hit enter, it'll fill in A for me. And then minus, I'm gonna create the next matrix. So go back to matrix, second to get to matrix. I need to edit thing B. It doesn't matter what letter you pick, but I'm going to pick B. And that's also 2 by 2. So we're just going to fill in those numbers. So 6 and then 9 and then 5 and then 8. And it'll just stay like that. So if I quit out of this, it's still going to be there. And then I need to just get it blinking where I want matrix B to go and just do matrix B. It's going to fill it in for me. Just do all the matrix stuff for me. So even if you don't know how to solve matrices, or if it's more complicated, especially if you're multiplying matrices, the calculator will do it for you. Calculator also has a bunch of shortcuts for like pre-algebra type questions, such as what's the remainder when 457 is divided by 7. So if I go to math, And then I want to go over to num for numbers. It'll do a bunch of things for me. So there's my absolute value button. Also, if I scroll down, this calculator is significantly slower than your real one will be. I can find the remainder. So pick that one. And then instead of putting a divided by sign, you got to use a comma in between them. So for these types of questions, it's mostly about having commas between your two numbers. So it'll just automatically tell me what the remainder is. Same thing, if I wanted like the greatest common factor, so math, go to number, scroll down until I see greatest common factor, or this calculator calls it greatest common divisor. And then same thing, I'm going to put a comma in between those. So that comma button's above my 7. And it'll just find it for me. I also have an I button. So for imaginary or complex numbers, you have to use the I that's above the decimal, not the letter I. So if I wanted to find that next example problem, so parentheses 2 plus 4, and then since it's blue, I'm going to push my second button, so second decimal to get to I, and parentheses squared, and it will simplify it all for me so that I don't have to FOIL it out and collect like terms and all that. And be aware you also have a factorial button. So if I wanted to do 5 factorial plus 4 factorial, one way to get there is I go to math, and it's part of my probability unit. So I push to the right to get to probability, and then thing number 4 is my factorial. So plus, maybe hit pause and see if you can find it. So math, probability, thing number 4. So, and then just as a kind of summary, so your math button has a whole bunch of shortcuts, and then pushing alpha and then y equals, or alpha and then window, will also get you to a bunch of other shortcuts. There's also a matrix shortcut in the Zoom that you might want to play around with. Hopefully, you will find those shortcuts helpful. Good luck!